Are we ready?
We're ready, Mayor.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. It is 3 o'clock, and this is the study session for the City Council for the City of Cathedral City. Today is Wednesday, March 8th, 2026. I will call this study session to order and ask that we begin with a roll call.
Councilmember Gordon?
Here.
Councilmember Ross?
Here.
Councilmember Lamb?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Gutierrez?
Here.
Mayor Gregory?
Here. The next item on our agenda is agenda finalization. Are there any changes to the agenda that we know about?
There are no changes to the agenda.
All right, thank you. All right, next on our agenda is public comments. This is the part of the meeting for public comments on items that are not on our agenda tonight. Just remember, you will have 3 minutes to speak. I keep seeing the screens move around, but that's okay. You will have 3 minutes to speak, and we ask that you don't have any audible outbursts when someone else is speaking. City Clerk, do we have any speaker cards?
Mayor, we do have a couple requests to speak. So if I can have Robert McCormick, please.
Welcome, Mr. McCormick.
Good afternoon, Mayor Gregory, City Council. My name is Robert McCormick. I am a decorated United States Marine Corps veteran. A couple weeks ago, I was at the park right here in front of City Hall when a police officer came up on me and told me that I needed a leash. I told him, show me a picture of a legal definition of a leash. He said, there's one right there. And he points at my strap. Walmart does not define in any way, shape, or form or dictate what our laws are. That came from Walmart. In order to appropriately address an inanimate object, because the English language does not depict and describe adequately what an inanimate object is, a picture is necessary. That way, both parties understand each other, and there is no obscure or vague communications. It has to be specific. We are a nation of laws. And if the laws that the police officers want to make is in their imagination and comes from outer space, Alice in Wonderland and Hollywood, that is not law. That is something that is obscure and just inappropriately that is communicated. Therefore, in order to have a communication between all parties that depict a situation involved where an inanimate object is concerned, a picture is necessary. So nobody has any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCormick.
The next speaker is Pam Smith.
Good
Welcome, Ms.
afternoon,
Smith.
Mayor and council members. Thank you for allowing me to speak with you today. My name is Pam Meisel Smith. My husband here is Eric Smith, and we've been in the Cathedral City Cove for about 20 years now. I can't believe it. And before I get started, I just want to say real quick, thank you for everything that you guys are doing in our city. We are the only city that is really growing and doing things that are for our city, and it's exciting to see all the new businesses and everything that are coming here. And that's kind of why I wanted to talk to you today, is because we're planning an event at the amphitheater here, November 7th. It's called Desert Eating for Life, and it's based around, I don't know if you're familiar with the Blue Zones that are going on in Palm Springs, and they're actually going to collaborate with us on this event too. And it's all about longevity, activities, keeping people young. You know, the initiative, if you've seen the series, it's about people in regions that have lived over 100 years old. And so what we'd like to do at this event is it's going to be plant-based restaurants that are in our community here. Also, we're inviting people from Riverside and LA coming here to share healthy food. We're also having In Shape, the gym that's right down the street. They actually have 22 locations in Southern California, and they are totally in. They want to share some different activities. Just it's all about being active and being a part of the community and neighbors and just purpose. And that's what people in the community need to live longer. We're also having other vendors there that have to do with positive living and things like that. We're going to have a DJ on stage, and it'll be very upbeat music. And we are asking for some sponsorship. I know you guys have been sponsoring several events over at the amphitheater, and we feel that this is really aligning with what's going on in our community and to help people be really connected and be with family and just things that will be enlightening for our community, and it will allow people to dance to the music and just a positive environment. So we have a website. My husband and I own an entertainment company called Enfuego Entertainment, and if you click on it, it's right when you first go in, there's already a commercial about Cathedral City and about the event. And we also have a song that my husband created. It's very upbeat and positive. It talks about our city and what the event's going to be like. So thank you for allowing me to share. Please consider this possible sponsorship for us. I know it's in November, which is your next fiscal year. So maybe we could put that into the budget. Thank you.
Let me ask you a question. We don't really discuss items,
I know,
but we
we're
can
not
ask
supposed to.
clarifying questions. So is this are you a nonprofit or supporting a nonprofit by this event?
This is what's crazy, is we're not making any money, but we're not filed for nonprofit.
Okay.
We're not doing it for the money, we're doing it for the community and for health and.
I see. Are
and
you
all that.
charging an admission fee?
Well, we're hoping if we can get it sponsored, we don't have to. We don't want to, because so many of these festivals, they don't charge here at the amphitheater. And that's when the snowbirds
So
come
again,
in.
we're not discussing, but I'll take that as it hasn't been decided yet.
Has not been decided yet.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
The next speaker is Richard Melinbara.
Good evening, and thank you for bringing your interpreters.
May I please request a time and a half because I'm using an ASL interpreter?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening, good evening, council members. Thank you for the opportunity to allow me to speak today. I wanted to remind everyone that April is Deaf History Month, a time to recognize the rich culture, history, and contributions of deaf and hard of hearing individuals throughout our community, but it also an important time to look honestly at how we are or not, ensuring true accessibility for everyone in Los Angeles. Recently, the California Office of Civil Rights was closed, and now NADA-related discrimination complaints from the state must process through the Seattle office. That's not just a change in address. It created a serious bottleneck. Right now, complaints are facing delays of a year or longer before being reviewed. For those who depend on captioning, interpreters, and equal access, that's not just inconceivable. It's denial of rights in real time. That's why tonight I'm asking this council to take a local leadership. We can't wait a year for justice when it comes to accessibility. I'm proposing that the city consider adopting a local accessibility ordinance requirement. Number one would be all business seeking new or renewed business license to sign ADA compliance acknowledgement from affirming they understand and will meet accessibility requirements. Two, Empathy has a great event and some have qualified interpreters. We want to thank you for offering interpreters, and I suggest having interpreters for all of those events, not just with 2 weeks request. And please have sections for deaf people to sit where we can see the interpreter without having to sit all the way back and where the interpreter is standing on the side, which is not allowing us to have full access of view. And at the same time, sometimes when they have something playing on the TV, we have no caption accessibility, because even if sometimes we have an interpreter, sometimes we tend to like to read the caption. There's no access to caption. Number three would be all public accommodations such as like restaurants, hotels, and event venues to provide ASL interpretation upon request, ensuring full participation for everyone. These measures don't go beyond the spirit of the ADA. They simply bring clarified accountability and local enforcement. They also send a clear message: accessibility is not a constancy, it's a civil right. Our city has long been leader in diversity, inclusion, and progress, supposed, but it is lacking when it comes to true equality for people with disability. Let's make sure that equally includes deaf residents and visitors too. By implementing these simple but meaningful steps, we can become a model city for accessibility and equality and truly honor Deaf History Month, not just with celebration, but with action. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Are there any other members of the public wishing to speak on items not on the agenda? I see no more, Mayor, but I do have one written comment when you're ready.
All right.
Okay, this comment was received for the record, provided to the members of the council, and made available at the entrance. Patricia Lomelli expressed concerns regarding Date Palm Drive conditions and safety.
Thank you so much. All right. With that, we'll move on with the rest of our agenda. We'll move on to the study session. Our first item on the study session is a comprehensive cannabis update and C4 industry odor mitigation update with the 2026 work plan. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. So there are two parts to this presentation. Justin Gardner, your Code Compliance Manager, will lead off with an update of city actions, largely since the ordinance the council adopted last year went into effect on November 23rd, 2025. And then this will be followed up by a presentation from David Bernard with C4 Industry on their actions. So, Justin?
Thank you. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Council, thank you for having me and thank you for taking the time to receive this presentation. My name is Justin Gardner and I am the Code Compliance Manager for our beautiful city of Cathedral City. So we've had some major changes come along. One of those major changes is the adoption of Ordinance 892. As you know, the council adopted this ordinance in October, and it sets clear requirements for the mitigating of odor nuisance in Cathedral City, among other updates to the code. Along with that, we've had some more emphasis on odor control plans. Odor control plans are reviewed now by planning, code compliance, as well as industry professionals such as SCS Engineering, once they are submitted to the city. And then we've also worked on greater communication, more direct and open communication with residents, such as the Cannabis Odor Town Hall that was held on April 2nd. So what's happened since the implementation of Ordinance 892? So since the implementation of the ordinance, we have begun stronger interdepartmental meetings and joint inspections with representatives from teams representing all of these different departments within the city. Historically, these meetings were kind of financial-based or financial-led. They do still have a very strong position in these team meetings now, but it's kind of actually cycled more to being under code, where we have a stronger presence in these meetings. So we're no longer operating in silos when it comes to cannabis-related issues across the board. So now we all get together at least once monthly. We have a list of current upcoming and currently worked issues with that. So these monthly meetings involve all the departments listed there. Topics discussed include upcoming licenses, upcoming inspections, active code violation cases, active health and safety concerns, and complaint trends. And this gives us all the ability to work with one another and have clearer, cleaner communication across all departments. And then code specifically has done a lot more in the training and education portion of all things cannabis. So we've continued building our relationships with the Department of Cannabis Control, learning what we can from them. We've also utilized things like industry experts like SCS Engineering, who helped us develop our forms and our check sheets that we'll get into a little bit later. We've also done cannabis-related training with our GoGov report writing system and how to handle those reports more adequately within our current report writing systems, as well as attending statewide cannabis or narcotic conferences where these topics are discussed. So we're continually putting training at the forefront to get our officers up to date and professional in this environment. We have began getting data from the EnviroSuite reporting system. This system is available to residents online through links. One of those links is on our Cathedral City website. This system records location, temperature, wind data, and other weather-related issues within an hour of the complaint. I do want to point out that this system is currently in a pilot program phase. So this is still a pilot program. Public reports are accompanied with a more accurate and timely timeline and reporting location. These reports are designed to notify cannabis businesses of a potential violation the moment they are submitted, as well as provide code compliance and accurate timeline of events for our own investigation purposes. Currently, right now, C4 Industries is the primary participating in this pilot program, but we can use the data from it to initiate other investigations across the city if the data is available. So some reporting trends, this is data that has come out of that EnviroSuite program. As you can see here, complaints have dropped by more than 50% since January of 2026. Again, we implemented our new 892 in October of 25. Complaints are mostly sourced from the Ramon area. The other 25% of odor reports not included in the breakdown include individual reports, internal reports, or test reports after we've gotten feedback from the public the system may not be working. We've then submitted test reports to test the system, and then we don't count those towards these numbers here. But you can see the top 3 complaint areas being the Ramon Road corridor, Date Palm corridor, and then the Perez Road corridor. Odor control plans. Existing businesses are required to submit an odor control plan as part of their 2026 cannabis license renewal. Upon approval, businesses must install any required odor control equipment within 6 months, but no later than December 31st of 2026. New cannabis businesses must have fully operational odor control systems in place prior to commencing operations. In addition, cannabis businesses are required to self-certify on an annual basis that they are operating in compliance with their approved odor control plan and that all odor control equipment is properly maintained. Again, new inspection checklists have been developed with the assistance of SCS Engineering for things such as the odor control checklists. Cannabis enforcement practices, conducting routine street patrols in areas with a high volume of cannabis businesses, as well as high reported areas of things such as odor. Continuously recording odor findings proactively to identify businesses potentially violating the municipal code, and then pursuing all code violations present at properties owned by cannabis businesses. And this is really to emphasize that adherence to the municipal code should be at all levels for all business types, not just cannabis. and including our residents. So there's just the enhanced enforcement of all the municipal code. We're not just solely focusing on odor. We're going to start with the small things also. If we're not parking in the proper areas, if we're not maintaining our landscape, then let's get into a habit of doing the right thing for everything across the board. Existing cannabis businesses, furthermore, we have some breakdown here of that enforcement in action. We've conducted 57 total inspections since the passing of 892. 30 of those have passed, 27 failed. Of the failed inspections, 13 then voluntarily complied and resolved the outstanding issues or have begun submittal of an odor control plan. I believe currently we have 4 total businesses that have been advised to submit an odor control plan out of sequence, meaning it's not due to their pending renewal. It's because odor was detected and they were given notification that they needed to submit their odor control plan sooner than before the renewal of their license. 11 businesses required escalated enforcement action with an additional 3 that we are, it says cultivation operations, order to cease operations, yes, but what I'd like to clarify in that is one of those 3 actually began the process during the moratorium phase and during the implementation of 892. We elevated enforcement actions there included a revocation of their conditional use permit. That business had since lost their CUP. That location now, due to the advancement of 892, will no longer be used as cultivation due to its location adjacent to a resort residential, and it is being successfully operated now from a local community member and business member who's, I believe, in the construction industry and using it for its intended purpose as a good neighbor. The other 2, we are current and ongoing. We have a cease and desist against a cultivator here in the city for failure to abide by the code, and then we have a pending local business license and local cannabis license revocation hearing set for this Monday, the 13th, for another operator. Overall, 48% of cannabis-related cases have been resolved with voluntary compliance. Again, as we approach this, just like with any other business type, we always want to see voluntary compliance first and foremost. Whether it be a business type or a resident, we want education, we want voluntary compliance, and we want to see things happening the right way. We've also recently began, it's a little off topic with cannabis, but we've also recently began these types of education and compliance seeking campaigns through other industries, one of the most recent being the auto shops and the overflow of vehicles that they're spilling out onto either vacant lots or into residential streets. So we've kind of modeled our campaign after this cannabis one to other business types also. So we're doing this fair and equally across the board throughout the community. So Cannabis Enforcement in Action, Part 2. Code compliance conducts the following proactive enforcement: street patrols. We have reduced the standard caseload of one of our officers to then take on a more primary role in cannabis. That officer has also been authorized to work outside of standard operating hours, so that way we can respond to and collect data on odor reports that are happening maybe before our current start times or after our current start times. They do have an emphasis and focus on areas such as the Perez Road, Ramon Road, Bankside, Sun Air, and Commercial Drive. Officers record odors as they are detected by location and strength. These are then crossed with incoming reports to determine patrol routes. We'll bounce what we're finding off of what's being reported in EnviroSuite. Our officer conducts these patrols throughout the week, throughout the month, and then weekly we'll send their results back up to my analyst, who then crunches all those numbers and helps us formulate what our next plan of action is, or help to identify those maybe rogue odors, or if we see trends in the industry, such as the unkept landscaping actually was one of the trends that we've identified in the cannabis industry, so we put some focus on that as well. And officers pursue code compliance violations include, right here, landscaping, property maintenance, parking, and other health and safety violations as actively as possible to ensure compliance with city requirements does not lapse across the board. Compliance and safety updates. Code compliance acts as the primary enforcement arm for cannabis requirements outside of the police department. The police department is the primary for things such as safety and the criminal code. However, code compliance is the enforcement body for everybody else. So for fire, for finance, for planning, building and safety, code compliance is the enforcement body for them. The police department conducts safety and security inspections and handles all criminal cases, and the fire department conducts fire code compliance inspections, and then we will assist them when necessary with elevated enforcement actions for failure to comply with their orders or requests. Planning and economic update, planning reviews license renewals and odor control plans, coordinating with all the other departments where needed and if needed. And we've also begun bringing planning staff into the field to verify what it is that's on floor plans or what's been sent to the city is true and correct on scene. As much as I'd love to say we wear code compliance wears every hat and is subject matter experts in all of it, we are not. And so we rely on these other outside sources to come help us and assist us with these things. And finance handles tax, licensing, and renewal fees, and also tracks active licenses and coordinates renewal timelines with all of the other departments previously listed during our monthly meetings and ad hoc as necessary. So I'd like to touch on public outreach. Oh, I did miss a little bit here. Let me go back. Should look at my notes. Officer Martinez completes between 10 to 20 street patrols weekly, 3 to 5 compliance case follow-ups, and conducts on average 10 renewal inspections per month. The code compliance detects odor on approximately 40% of these patrols. All right, public outreach. Promoting updates and information through the city website, which, as you probably know, has been refreshed and we have a new look and a new feel to it. But we've also dedicated a cannabis page there, as well as links to the EnviroSuite reporting platform, and then also updates regularly of these patrols and findings that we're getting weekly. And then also, as previously mentioned, we hosted a virtual town hall on April 2nd, and we got just about 90 attendees. And we use that to update residents on city strategy and approach to the growing cannabis industry and help with transparency for the residents. With that, I'll open it up for questions.
Thank you, Council. Questions? I see Councilmember Gordon in the queue.
Thank you. Thank you, Justin. I really appreciate the update and the clarity with which you presented it. I have a handful of questions. First, on EnviroSuite, we've had a number of public comment where folks have come in and sort of expressed concerns that it was malfunctioning, it wasn't accurately capturing data, it wasn't a variety of things which you've probably heard over the course of the, can you talk a little bit about any kind of troubleshooting that's being done and how we can assure residents that what's happening in EnviroSuite is true to what they're smelling, feeling, and reporting?
Sure. So I'm not a subject matter expert on all the inner workings on how
Sure.
they do all that wizardry on the back end, but I do know that we take every complaint about its non-performance seriously, and we will then test that ourselves. So we've also set up meetings with EnviroSuite to discuss the concerns that have been raised by citizens about reporting, and we've also worked with them in moving forward and developing more options on how to capture the data and how to make it so we're addressing all of those complaints. So
Great.
some of the stuff has already been implemented, other things are still pending and being implemented, but that's why we did have a pretty big chunk of test reports that we omitted from the numbers because of that. So every time that we get one, we'll then go on and test it to see if it goes through, then check it on the back end to see if it's received, and we do troubleshooting.
Got it. Thank you.
And does it, because it's a EnviroSuite question, does it respond back to the informant at all? I know that was one of the complaints was I filed something, it doesn't tell me it was received, it doesn't tell me anything. Is it?
So in our tests, I do believe it does send back a semi-generic response.
At least they know
Sometimes
it
it
was
can go to a spam or a junk folder. So that we've seen in some instances that was the case. But there is a receipt that is sent from the system notifying that it's been accepted.
I'll just add as an N of one, who's used it a couple of times. I have never received any confirmation
Okay.
that my complaint has been received. So that may be something that needs to continue to be troubleshooted. Okay, then you talked about there were 27 businesses that had failed and 13 that had complied as a result of that. So that leaves 14. Can you give a little, not person by, or business by business, but a little bit of an overview of the 14 that are still not in compliance?
Sure, a lot of those were minor or transitory issues, or that they've been given their due process, and we're still in the middle of that due process to allow them correction time to get it done. And it could be things for something like landscaping, improper storage of waste or trash. We've had a couple instances of overflowing water. We've had a couple instances of not so fresh water leaving the property line. There's a multitude of things where it's comprehensive what we're doing now as far as enforcement, these checklists, what we're looking for. Again, along with the learning that we've continued to improve our learning of the industry and of cannabis. As new things come to light to us, we're starting to recognize that and enforce on that also.
So some of those 14 that remain are just general code compliance, not cannabis-specific compliance issues.
It's the business itself. It's
Got it.
something that's in the
That
operation.
any business would be required to comply with,
Correct.
not just cannabis business.
Correct.
Okay, perfect.
So that's just the business itself had an issue. We identified that issue, whether it be odor, maybe they had their front door propped open and they're not supposed to.
Got it.
I mean, there's just the litany of different code cases.
Okay. And then there are, you'd mentioned the 3 businesses that were particularly egregious. One of those, which is no longer functioning as a cannabis business and is now a good actor. Can you talk a little bit about the other 2? Not necessarily naming names, but sort of where we are with them. My sort of questions are these businesses, bless you, are these businesses that are not in compliance because of the updates to the ordinance? Are they longtime sort of non-compliers? I want to understand sort of, has the goalpost moved for these businesses that are in egregious non-compliance? And how we are addressing their particularly egregious non-compliance?
Sure. Not getting into too specifics because they are open, ongoing cases, and we do have appeal hearings that are happening, very soon, next week. I would like to say the goalpost has not changed. The only change in the goalpost, maybe with the update of 892, was the odor control mitigation plans and submitting those plans. I think more so it's just we've repainted the goalpost bright yellow, and they know it's there. And we're holding them accountable for things that maybe in the past they hadn't been held accountable for. So it's not that we've moved the goalpost on them or changed the rules. It's just that, we have a fresh set of eyes and understanding and education in this realm that has better equipped us to go out there and handle these violations.
Got it. And I think I think this is my last question. For those businesses, what kind of timeline and/or, I know you mentioned there's appeals pending, but what kind of timeline and speed, knowing that we're in sort of a little bit of tension between, compliance and working within the boundaries of the ordinance and our sort of need as a city to ensure that any business, cannabis or otherwise, is in compliance with all of our sort of rules of doing in business?
Yeah. So that's one of the unique challenges with code compliance. And also, coming from a law enforcement background, there's not a whole lot of wiggle room for stuff in the LE back room a lot of times. There are certain crimes that it doesn't matter if I saw it, if it happened, you're coming now. With code, there's a lot of leniency and discretion in that world, whether it be a private person at their home, and there's always circumstances around each and every single case. So it may be at business A, they had a landscaping issue that was bad, but it wasn't so bad that it caused people on the sidewalk to not be able to use the sidewalk and have ADA concerns. Okay, we might give them 15 days or 10 days or maybe even 30 days to comply, where the next business, same cannabis business, but their landscaping is so awful that it's causing the sidewalk not to be used, we're going to escalate that quicker. So it just really depends on the circumstances that are being presented to us, the totality of what everything's going on. If it's a repeat offender, if they've been a known bad actor, if it's all those things are considered when we go into these notices. We do also adhere to the municipal code and things that are called out in that. So if it's called out in the municipal code, we must or shall give a 10-day period for due process, then we're going to adhere to that. However, if it spills over into something where we then have that discretion to pass by that 10-day and go straight for a different, use a different tool in the toolbox, then we're poised to do that.
Got it. Thank you. This is very helpful.
All right, I'm next up. So, and I had some very similar questions, so I don't want to repeat, and I don't want you to have to repeat parts of your presentation. And I also want to say, I think what's happening is really good, that you now have this team working together. But I share some of the same concerns that we're hearing of issues that one might regard health and safety or gross financial even issues that have been allowed to go on for a long time, and not necessarily hearing that there's a strong plan for action now. For example, we hear that there are businesses that stopped paying their taxes or stopped paying, their licensing fees or combination thereof. And so they lost their license or it wasn't renewed. But they just continue on operating for months and months and months, and hundreds of thousands of dollars are owed, and they're just operating.
Right.
And that strikes me as odd, because if we had a illegal sidewalk vendor that was operating without a license, we would take some immediate action. I'm just as an example, or a clothing store that wasn't paying their sales tax. There would be some quicker action. Yet some of these cannabis businesses have, racked up hundreds of thousands of dollars of fees owed or taxes owed, and they, for as far as I know, they're still growing or still manufacturing or selling today. So what is it, do you have a definite plan? Are you working on a definite plan? What is, and I assume that that's not acceptable to code or any other department in the city either.
It's not.
So
Yeah,
kind
a lot
give
of
us a preview of what's going on there.
a lot of that was status quo kind of before my time here at the city and before the implementation of 892. It is a new era in code compliance through the city. I think over the last 2.5 years, we've kind of shown that in every aspect of how we approach and how we do things. This is no different. The time is now for enforcement and bringing all of them to compliance, or at least encouraging them to do the right thing. We've even heard at cannabis-related functions that the good actors are frustrated with those competing bad actors, that they're seeming to get away with stuff. So that's not the case. Again, frustrating in the code world. I wish I could solve problems right now. I would love to be able to drag someone out and say, "You see it, clean it up." Doesn't work that way, right? We have to give them that due process. We have to utilize some of the tools have instructions that we have to follow. With that, so for the example of the bad actor operating without any business licenses, I would love to just go and chain them and lock them out myself. Eventually, we're going to get there. That requires legal action from our team going to the courts to ask for that injunction for a legal lockout or a
But
temporary.
are we hesitating at that, or are we,
No.
because that seems to have been a problem in the past, that when it got to that point, we tried to get compliance, and many comply, or they have, you're able to work with them, and then some just don't. And this has happened in some vacation rental, it's happened,
Right.
It's not just cannabis, but cannabis is what we're talking about today.
Correct.
And I think it is eye-opening, when you hear some of these stories that, they're just blatantly refusing, and and I'm not blaming you, I'm congratulating you and the team for getting to this point, but hopefully we're not saying, well, we're okay with this. Hopefully we're continuing to
No.
improve, that we're not hesitating to quickly move when somebody is not complying, and not just allowing them to continue on.
We are 100% doing just that with the a particular cannabis business that we have a current cease and desist. That cease and desist is a letter that got drafted and sent from our legal team to them demanding that they shut down operations. That is one of the steps required prior to seeking that injunction for lockout.
And I've got you, but I think people say, ooh, a letter, ooh, so that's not it.
That's not it. That's just one of the rungs in that ladder that we have to climb before we get that final big kapow, whether it be a lockout, a temporary restraining order, or we move it to criminal with failure to abide by the municipal code throughout most of the municipal code, they can be elevated to misdemeanors. There are a dozen and a half different tools and different approaches that we can use, and we have been using them and a lot more quickly. There's another one that we're doing currently that's resulting in the upcoming hearing that, due to the level of the egregiousness, we skipped all of that and went to a revocation demand. So we didn't start with a warning. We flooded it with everything and went straight to the revocation request. Now we're going to depend to see how that happens. But yes, we're not slow rolling it by any means, and we're not being complacent with our enforcement.
Okay. And are we involving our state partners and others in this? Because this is a licensed also by the state business. So in my mind, like pharmaceuticals, okay? So if we had somebody and they were making pharmaceuticals and then they just stopped complying or worrying about it, but they just kept making them, which then you assume at some point they're going out to people to consume, I don't think we would just send them a letter. I think we would take further action, and there would be state partners that we could involve. So are we involving our state partners?
100%. We just went out and we're actively doing a concurrent enforcement on one of these bad actors currently. We went out yesterday for multiple hours and witnessed the voluntary destruction supervised by the DCC, the Department of Cannabis Control, of well over 1,000 plants. And that has been and is still currently an ongoing concurrent action with the DCC. We've also continued to build the relationship with the DCC. We have a couple direct lines now with 2 of, I believe, the 4 agents who are responsible for the Coachella Valley, including the city of Cathedral City. And they've taught us how to more quickly get our references to them ahead of the line. So we still have to go through the process on the back end of submitting it through the state website and things, but then we can give them a courtesy. Hey, we've submitted one. It's coming from another government agency. This is not just a random complaint. And so we've continued to work on those relationships. We'll continue to work on those relationships. And it was good news. It seemed like they had 2 brand new employees to bolster their numbers that were out training with them yesterday. So hopefully we'll have 2 more agents to this area for the DCC as well. We've also continued to build those relationships with the State Water Board. We have found some trends right now in the cannabis industry locally that resolve around cannabis wastewater not being properly disposed of. So we've continued our relationships with the State Water Board and making referrals to them as well for their actions. The difficult part, as I'm sure you can understand, is we can only get the referral to them, and then once it's with them, their timeline on how they process, we're kind of at their mercy. But we are at least getting the info to them.
Well, you happen to have somebody from the state senator's office in the audience today, so I'm sure they're listening, and the state senator would be happy to help streamline any of this. I think once you get it going, where it's a regular thing, then and hopefully you only have so many operators. And I really appreciate what you touched on, because none of us are trying to be harsh on the business, but they have to operate professionally, and it's not fair on the majority of them that are going to great expense and trouble to operate within the rules, to have other ones just snub their nose. They're not just doing it at us, they're basically doing it at their colleagues, saying, here you go into all this expense and trouble, and we're just not following the rules, and nothing is of great consequences happening to us. So it sounds like we're being mean, or we're being, or if the city may be trying to, we're the rule makers and we enforce the rules. That's not really what we're doing here. We are working to professionalize the business, but we're also trying to make, and you hit on it, a very level playing field. So.
And this is, for all businesses, and kind of outside of this too, there's so many layers to this. With the adoption of the City Detect program, that's allowed more proactivity from my code officers. We are now fully, officially, completely staffed. We just hired our most recent code officer, so we're completely staffed. So we're able to go out and put more focus on these things that maybe had snuck by the byway across the board. So we have a code officer now assigned to the business corridor beautification. We have another code officer that's focusing in now on signs and snipe signs. We're still doing the shopping cart patrols. So we're able to do a lot more proactive stuff given all these other things that we've accomplished over the last couple years. So again, it's not that we've changed the rules or moved the goalposts. We just are paying attention to the rules and repainted the goalpost.
And in the long term, when you're talking about additional staffing, are you working with finance or plan to work with when it comes time for the fee studies again, so that you can better identify, because you're having to increase time and effort in certain areas. Some of them
Yes.
are licensed and have fees associated with them. And of course, typically, governments, when they have to do these enforcement actions, try to recover at least a portion of those costs in the fees. So
We have worked with finance for these same types, not necessarily cannabis specific, but we're familiar with the process and we'll continue to work with them on that. And then also we're in the midst of applying for Prop 64 grant money, which could also potentially bring in another full-time staff member that we're going to solely dedicate 100% to cannabis.
excellent. And again, the state senator's office could probably help you with that too if you need it. So, all right, my last question is, it just kind of caught me as you spoke a little bit about self-certification regarding odor control. So what is that? And is that, because it sounds like you're just saying check the box that you're complying. Is there some follow-up, or
Yes.
and you follow up when you get a complaint? How is that?
So all of the lion's share of the permitting happens well before that self-certification. So we're going to have our contractor look at those plans. Planning's going to look at those plans. The business itself is likely going to hire somebody like an industrial hygienist to develop those plans. Building's going to look at the plans to make sure they were all installed properly. So all of that big brunt of making sure it works properly is going to already be done. So the self-certification annually is also going to be checked up on through our scheduled and unscheduled inspections by our cannabis officer. And we're going to look at things such as, well, do you have a checklist for the last time, or when are you changing your filters, and when's the last time you changed them, or has there been any breakdowns, has there been any, so we're going to be looking at that. There are checks and balances built into that. It's not simply just yeah, we're good.
All right, so it's self-certification, but there is some verification, especially if you do get complaints in that area. All right, thank you so much. All right, next up is Mayor Pro Tem Gutierrez.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon. Thank you for your presentation. And you have a very difficult job. I'm sure your picture is a dartboard in many of these businesses. I guarantee you that. Now, my question is, great questions from council members here, my colleagues. Now, my question is, when you visit a cultivation or a business, do you normally actually give them the opportunity to resolve any citations, any code compliance violations, any of these issues in a timely manner?
So, yes, and it depends. So it depends on the question there. Do we give notices to make corrections? Yes. However, if the violations that were noticed were egregious enough, we can also elevate that enforcement more rapidly to make that, executive decision or managerial decision that we can't wait for these corrections to happen. Or there's an expectation that you're going to correct these things, but that has no bearing on this other action. I don't know if I'm explaining that properly.
So like health and safety issues, somebody's gushing a bunch of water out onto the, for example, polluted water, you're not going to say, oh,
Correct.
you have 30 days to comply. It's like,
Right.
no, this needs to stop right away.
So we can simultaneously say, hey, look, you have yucky landscaping and a dilapidated sign and, these other smaller issues. Yeah, you have 10 days, here's your notice of violation. You got 10 days to fix that. However, we're also going to do whatever this action is in conjunction with this that doesn't require us to give time to comply. So, and that's across, that's not just cultivators or cannabis, and could be for any business, that if, let's say it's we go to a home-based business and their home has all these different code violations, but the business is a pool cleaning company, and then we look inside the garage and there's a multitude of chemicals and caustic acids and all of these things that are a health and safety violation for the community at large. We can give them the notices and say, hey, you need to fix all of these other minor things, but oh yeah, by the way, your business license is now suspended because of the egregiousness of storing all those chemicals and get rid of it immediately.
Isn't it a little bit contradictory because you're telling them, fix all these items, yet we're going to be revoking your license at the same time. So what happens if they do remediate all those issues and you're still continuing with the revocation of their license?
So there is an expectation that all of those issues that were notified need to be fixed, period. Owning a license is separate from those issues. So I don't believe it's contradictory. I believe that it's just one of the tools in our toolbox to seek compliance.
I would add to Mr. Gardner's comments here that in the cannabis licensing regulations, we also have language on good cause. And really the expectation is for cannabis businesses that they're following the code. And there is very clear language in the code that when an applicant, a licensee, has knowingly made false statements, misrepresentations, material omissions, when they are adversely affecting the public health, safety, or welfare, that there is the opportunity for the city to deny, suspend, or revoke a license. So there is an expectation in here that cannabis businesses that hold a license are following the code. And it may not be a provision that we've used often, but this is a provision in the code that does allow us to take those measures, to take those steps in a more aggressive way. It's not to say we're leading with this, but it is a tool in the toolbox, and I think Mr. Gardner has correctly identified that it's situational. It really depends on the circumstance. It depends on the scenario that we're looking at. And I know we spent a lot of time talking about bad actors and escalated enforcement. This really is a minority of the cannabis businesses in the city. We're talking about 3 or 4, and probably the lowest number that we've had since we've permitted cannabis businesses in the city. It's a small number of businesses that have back taxes. It's a small number of businesses that have serious code violations. And Justin and the code compliance staff, they are using the tools in the toolbox to address those in a timely manner.
Yes, I would like to be fair to make sure that the businesses that are not paying their taxes, given some kind of opportunity, given them 30 days to pay, or definitely shut them down. And also those businesses that are not operating the way the code is intended to also be given the opportunity to remediate things immediately within 10 days or whatever it is. And if not, revocate their license. So just a little bit of fairness, because from a upcoming hearing, from what I heard from the owner of the cannabis, is that they were not given the opportunity to remediate those violations, even though those violations, 80, 90% of them were completed within days. So that's my question, that's my concern, that to make sure that everyone's given a certain time to actually fix those violations, to remediate them. That's my question, to see if they were there, because these individuals were never given the opportunity to remediate all this.
Councilmember, is this an active matter? Yes. It's not appropriate for us to comment on an active enforcement or appeal matter, so
Okay.
we can't, we could,
Yeah, no, but as far as all other businesses, I just want to make sure that they're given the opportunity, but I understand that some of these issues that could immediately force what you did are taken care of as well. So you're doing a great job. It's a tough job, I'll tell you, okay?
It's very tough, and this goes back even to the simple things of a unmanicured lawn. We have lots of them throughout the city, and we are able to tackle a lot more of those now through the City Detect pilot program, but the human element on each of those. We have homeowner A, who just simply doesn't care, doesn't want to, has the physical and financial abilities to fix their lawn, but then homeowner B, a couple houses down, is a single elderly individual that is handicapped and on a fixed income. They would love to fix their lawn, can't. We can't necessarily take the exact same enforcement approach on both of them because it's not going to be successful. And I think that applies to this industry as well, or all industries. Depending on the severity of the issue, depending on other factors, we have to utilize certain tools in the toolbox to take action swiftly and quickly to ensure the health and safety of the community at large. So while back taxes is an issue that can be addressed through the municipal code and through violation or through citations and other enhanced enforcement actions, that doesn't reach the same criteria as maybe, we'll just say for sake of argument, caustic materials such as like the growing chemicals or things that they're using being stored improperly or being spilt out into the public right of way. So that's going to be addressed and tackled differently. Yes, enforcement across the board for everybody, fair and consistent, but given the circumstances that's presented.
It's difficult, thank you.
Very. Yes, that was the easy way to say what I said.
It's very difficult, especially right now that we're trying to enforce the new ordinance. A lot of them, like you said, is the same goalpost, is just now a brighter
Right.
job.
And I have a feeling that we're going to see this trend across the municipal code throughout the city, given the fact that we now are able to be a lot more proactive with all things, having emphasis specifically on business licenses, having emphasis on beautification of the business corridor, and not just being overwhelmed with being responsive to complaints. We're likely going to shake the tree a little bit with a lot of things of, well, hey, it's been this way forever. You guys never cared before. Well, it's not that we didn't care. We maybe just didn't have the ability to come out there and talk to you about it yet.
Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Lamb.
Great, and thank you, Mayor. Great questions, and I have my question at the end of this, but first I just wanted to acknowledge the town hall. I don't know how many of you were able to attend that. It was positively brilliant, and the organization of it, with your presentation, Justin and Andy Firestein, and facilitated by Ryan. And then we had two representatives from SCS, and I can't remember their names. But they did a marvelous job in explaining, what the past conditions were, the modifications of our code, the current conditions, and what we're doing in terms of compliance and moving forward. So it was a great overview, especially for the people who are not able to come to our city council meetings and hear the update on the code compliance. So my question is, there was a wonderful question and answer at the end of it, but at the end of the hour, there were still lots and lots of questions. So to you is, between the residents and the industry people, what were the kind of questions they were asking? Not specifically, but that is to me, it's a great tool for what they still don't understand or what they need answers to, so that they're more comfortable in our community. So just generally, because you said there were lots of them left, and that was the end of the time.
So I got a little bit of an alibi on that one.
Okay.
I actually was on vacation at the time during that in New Orleans with the family. I know he's not watching, but thanks, Ben, for being quiet. The hotel we were at didn't have an office space, so I had to bribe him to be very quiet while we did that in the hotel room. So I was operating on only an iPad, and I really didn't get to see a lot of the questions because my screen was tiny and operational stuff. Ryan Hunt, our Director of Communications, has all of those questions, and the debrief that the city manager, Ryan, and myself had is that we're going to go through those questions, identify any trends in questions, and then there's going to be some outreach that's going to happen after that to address those.
Okay, thank you so much. That's it.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Ross.
Thank you so much. It wasn't long ago I would have defined the department as complacent. Really, what an evolution you've been through. And it's taught me personally a lot, but it also has helped really rectify problems while also having a pretty good educational foundation as well. And at the end, we have enforcement, but it's not, ridiculously out of control or, super, demanding of people. And I just wanted to share that the biggest thank you I can give you. I really have thought that this has gone much smoother, much faster, and better than I really had hoped for. I know there's more work to be done. I'm now confident that you and your team can do that, and I'm looking forward to regular updates. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right. Anybody on round two with Justin, or can we move on? All right, we're ready to move on then.
Thanks for your time.
Mayor, it looks like Lisa Slaughter. Lisa Slaughter will be leading off the second part of the presentation.
Thank you, Lisa Slaughter. So good to see you.
Thank you so much, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. I bring you glad tidings and good news. Okay, I really, really do. And I'm going to talk about that eureka moment and our evolution of C4 regarding odor. Now, feel free to ask me questions during the presentation. Also, if it gets very technical or some of your questions are technical and beyond my odor knowledge capability, David Bernard is here, the COO, as most of you know. So, good news in a lot of ways, but first let me tell you that Cathedral City is going to be able to do what no other city has done. And in fact, David's meeting with the County of Santa Barbara to apply some of the things I'm talking to you here about today for the County of Santa Barbara, because they've had obviously a huge issue, and I think Cathedral City is setting the standard. One of the things that's incredible here is that despite what you may have thought, C4 really does care. They operate here, the employees live here, they're starting to get very involved in the community and giving back. So there's been an evolution in engagement as well as in the odor infrastructure. So very briefly, we all know that this is the largest, or hopefully you know that this is the largest cannabis cultivation facility in the state of California. And as far as we're aware in the nation, nobody has had all this cultivation within a limited amount, this amount of square footage. 10 grow rooms, 150,000 pounds of cannabis per year, 325,000 square feet. That's a lot of tax revenue, employees, and odor. So we'll get to the odor part. The good news is, just from today and today's, and ask Andy to verify if he likes, the complaints gotten in this beginning, when you see what the technology is that's been employed, the complaints today, I almost cried. They were down to 4 in April, down to 4, and they've gone consistently down since January, and you'll see that. The key component and the key moment, the eureka moment, is most treatment of cannabis odor is before it goes out. That's it, just before it goes to the exhaust. There's not an issue about containing the air within or treating the air within. It's just about treating it as it goes to an exhaust. That's next to impossible to eliminate odor at the property line with just treating it at the exhaust. So unlike some initial approaches to odor mitigation, C4 said the answer is in the air. It's to treat the air inside at the source of the odor, which is the cultivation bay, the trimming, all the areas where the odor is the most. So the idea is don't let odor migrate, instead mitigate. Keep it with a negative pressure. So how is that negative pressure done, and how is the treatment done? And here's an idea of what's been employed and when. The thyroid field study is essentially an odor study. Where are the odors coming from? Where are the dynamic areas in the map? What's going on? Where do we need to target? The second was a series of scrubbers and proprietary carbon media, because your average HEPA filter is not going to tackle the cannabis odor and the level of what's in that cannabis odor that needs to be captured. The second, as you can see, the drop in complaints, obviously we want no complaints, but the drop in complaints is substantial. And then you have the negative pressure being used in all particular areas. So stage 1, what do? These are massive industrial air filters deployed throughout the facility. So they're employed in areas where there's high concentration of odor, which are basically almost everywhere, but certainly you'll see what we do in the cultivation bays, but certainly in the trimming rooms, the storage rooms, et cetera. Air circulates through this approximately 4 times each hour in the room. Now, the question becomes, one of the things that's key is C4 does not follow the manufacturer's recommended change of filters. C4 does it on a real-time basis because they're consistently odor mapping internally. So if something needs to be changed in 2 weeks, it's changed in 2 weeks, not the manufacturer's suggested 3 months. And that's something that a lot of other, I think, hopefully, as more of this technology and process gets out, more operators will start to employ because it makes a big, big difference. So again, if you want to boil it down, it's contain, capture, and cure. And this is step 1 in how that's done. By the way, C4 has submitted its odor plan. It's gotten its comments back, returned those, and had an inspection, I believe it was on April 2nd, where David invited planning to come, just a preliminary, because the compliance officers are the people who are going to be walking in and understanding, they need to understand a very complex system like this so they can see if it's in compliance. So planning was there, building and safety and code compliance all participated in that just preliminary plan check walkthrough. This shows you, and it's a little difficult to read because it's so dense, but it shows you where the equipment is deployed, where those standing filters are, where the carbon scrubbers are, and the exhaust fans and the equipment, to show you the voluminous amount of equipment that has been added since January. So another example of in-source capture is these are, obviously this is a cultivation bay, and these are carbon filters. They are throughout the entire bay. So you're capturing it at the cultivation stage. Essentially, each time the plant transforms from growing to dry to cured to trimmed, you have a dynamic odor system in place that's capturing that odor, and then a negative pressure system that's keeping that air inside. As much as you can treat the air inside, that's where the solution becomes evident and minimizes odor. Then this is actually really kind of stage 2 of 2. This is maintained under negative pressure. It means air can only move in one direction through a 2-stage carbon filtration system. Controlling where the air goes so that you can make sure it's treated is absolutely fundamental to any mitigation of odor or air. Then the final phase is the vapor phase, and that's where it's already been treated essentially 3.5 times, and then this is the final stage where it actually is exhausted, right? And you've captured that air, you've held it captive, you've treated it 4 times, and only then, as an extra measure, add some vapor, and then it's released into the atmosphere. So what's interesting about this is the SulfurSorb is a brand name like Xerox or Tide, but it's the kind of carbon media that is most effective with cannabis, and actually really one of the few. Excuse me here, let me get to, there's a specific note. So the media itself isn't magic, it's the combination of all 4 of these stages. It's the strongest media and one of the areas that it goes through most exhaustively, no pun intended. I had to add some humor into it just for a bit. So this was proven in this particular media because C4's gone through a number of carbon filters, a number of different media to figure out what media can capture this amount of odor volume. Because again, we're dealing with volume here of air. So that's what's been done in Q1. This is Q2 because this is an ongoing, innovative, dynamic situation. As it improves, as we're seeing it, we're not done. We want to continue the improvement and continue the industry standard so Cathedral City can be one of the few cities that says, you know, we actually solved this. It isn't treating it right before it goes out, it's treating it inside. So 4 perimeter monitors. Right now, I believe there are 3, David? 2. So expanding it to 4. That obviously you have those meters, they give you real-time feedback. Oops, something's wrong, go check a filter. Let's see what's happening. Is there a power outage? What's going on here? So that's real time, that's not the next day. And again, this facility operates 7 days a week. Dedicated local weather system. This is insight to capture real-time wind to see where it's going. Meteorological events allow C4 to target where is this coming from. Is it really coming from us? Is it coming from downwind? What's going on? So with that real-time data, you can adjust and take a look at the equipment and everything else in its operational standard. Maybe a couple of filters need to be changed. Maybe one of the exhaust fans went down for some reason. So that allows us to capture meteorological data before that odor is perhaps escaping before it's even reported, because it's real time. The other interesting addition to technology is UV oxidation units at exhaust and air handling systems. This has proven in other industrial settings to be able to break down the odor molecules that may have passed through carbon filtration. So it's an addition to, not instead of. So again, this is a multi-layered approach that no other business has added these 4 stages and now this additional technology in Q2. So Q3, the static pressure sensor network deployed across the entire facility, and that's the entrances, that's the break rooms, that's the other areas where cannabis isn't, to make sure that when an employee leaves, the static pressure stays there, because the employees leave at a specific time when shifts change, rather. So we want to make sure that that air is captured in there too, and doesn't migrate out. And again, adding additional infiltration. I mean, this has been so far this year over $1 million investment in infrastructure to try to solve this problem. And there's been tremendous amount of success given the size of the issue. It's live sensor readings rather than estimates. So it's odor mapping that can be done. You can find out where the odor is. It's not just a study that says if you have 500 plants, you're probably going to have X amount of decibels, that's not the right term, or X amount of parts per billion of odor. This is real mapping on where's it coming from, where do we need the most deployment. Improved waste handling practices. Waste is an odor causer. I know that it needs to be locked and contained and it's inside, but it can be a big source of odor. C4 has asked Burtech to be able to be a self-hauler so we can get rid of it sooner. Burtech has denied that. So we certainly asked for that. So, and Burtech has its reasons, which we'd really love to know. But that's for another time. So it's one of the highest emission activities. So ideally, hopefully something will be worked out so that we can eliminate the waste in days, not weeks. And then, of course, in Q3, there's an audit. The audits will be going on, but a more comprehensive audit because we'll have more deployment of more technology, hopefully different waste handling procedures, the UV system, et cetera, input. Because what C4 does is its impact in real time. It's contained impact of odor mapping, and it's not. So many cannabis businesses judge the sufficiency and value of their system with complaints. Complaints are indicative, but complaints aren't the only source, and to prevent, it's more prophylactic. The more you treat the air inside, and the more you know your own odor mapping, the less likely you are to get complaints because you can deploy your resources where they're most needed. Then the other thing in Q4 is natural biofilter enhancement. There are plants, especially around this particular size, that do help at the property line, do help absorb odor. So in October and December, obviously a full year review with metrics, formal written report submitted to City Council. We'd love to come back and visit you in a year, if not sooner, and say, hey, we did these things and it worked even better. Or we did this thing, it didn't work, so we tried this, right? Because obviously our goal and the mandate is zero odor at the property line. Again, another study session. And strategic planning, developing and seeing what's working, what isn't working, and what we need to add or subtract to make all this work. Again, it's the combination of all these things that have never been done. The 4 stages, the filter, the odor mapping, the weather. So every system is checked daily. They now have dedicated staff just to check and make sure that the odor systems are working. Every report gets a response. Every dollar, which has been, I don't know, what is that, a couple million? Pardon? Yeah, about $2 million. About $2 million deployed over the past, say, 12 months just on odor control. That's a significant statement saying we understand the problem, we don't like the problem, and we're doing something about the problem. And so far, it seems to be working. And that's the end.
A very nice, positive report. We're glad to hear it, Council. The queue has been cleared, so if you wish to speak, you get the opportunity to click on there again. And I see the first one in there is Councilmember Gordon.
Thank you. It has been almost exactly to the day 2 months since
Yes.
Ann and I took a tour at C4 and asked for what you've just shown us. So thank you for that. I commend you for the actions that C4 has taken, and you're starting to see the results of that.
Yes, thank you.
I'm not ready to pack up and declare victory, and I
Oh,
don't
I
think
know.
you are either. But I think we have 2 months of promising data. I want to see that ongoing. I'm glad we now have some quarterly roadmap milestones that we can look at to determine. And I think we need to continue to rely on our community to tell us, and I consider myself a member of the community who can tell you. And every once in a while, I'm still getting a whiff. It is significantly less than it was when you all moved in and started business. So I appreciate that. I think there's some opportunity for C4 to continue to be an industry model in the way that you are doing this. And I really appreciated where you said where we will look at what didn't work, because I think that's almost more important than looking at what is.
Agreed.
And seeing where there remain gaps in the system and where there are things that are still shortcomings.
Yes.
So I appreciate that. I commend it. I think, again, having that quarterly roadmap was something that I wanted when I walked in. Andy and I talked about. I think it's something that we want to see not end in December of 2026, right? We want that to ongo into
2027, yes.
and beyond. And I think as we get to Q4 specifically, when a lot of your neighbors will be at the resort specifically, I'm cautiously optimistic with the numbers. I also know that a lot of those neighbors have started to leave town. And so I really want to make sure that we are, that you are continuing to do the things that you're doing, stick to the plan, modify the plan as you get additional information that needs to improve, and then really in that sort of fall timeline, have some reflection around when our neighbors are coming back to town, and are they seeing the difference, right? And are we continuing to see that sort of either plateau or decline?
If I can suggest, maybe we come back with this at the end of Q3 and mid Q4 and show you what we've done and what's worked and what hasn't worked right before everybody comes, season starts again.
Yeah, I defer to the council on that, but.
Right, and we defer to city management on the scheduling
Well,
a little bit. but-
we're certainly willing to do that.
But certainly you would want to have a discussion with them about what you have, and then they
Absolutely.
can determine the proper time. Thanks.
So all of this to say, I think the one sort of little thing is the sort of question around Burtech and the garbage. And I think that may be something where we could have a discussion play a role.
So can you speak a little bit more about that? I mean, I was under the impression that if you contract with daily service with Burtech, they'll come and pick up daily. Do they is because it's cannabis, or do they have some
let me
other
ref-
particular? They
let
only have
me-
a day that they want it? How does that working with?
I'm going to have David answer that since he's been directly in touch with
And
them.
part of our challenge is our franchise agreement with Burtec. So David has been in contact with Deanna Pressgrove. That discussion has been ongoing, and that is one that we can continue.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. The issues that we've had with Burtec have been mainly around scheduling. Typically takes about 3 days to schedule a pickup. They do not have a system in place where we can have a routine pickup schedule with them. We've attempted 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And I have a member of our staff now that has a calendar reminder to call them to actually schedule. So the things that we're looking at for improving waste handling, which we discussed this during the last inspection, is implementing a compacting system, which in essence keeps the cannabis waste contained. It has an internal ozone generating system. So any of the odors that are associated with cannabis would be minimized within the containment of the compactor. Burtec would then take the compactor, haul the compactor, and we would keep the waste on site for roughly 2 days at a time. So.
All right, well, I know we would urge you to continue to work with them and with our city staff, because that seems like it could be a big problem. You're going to all this trouble to keep the odor from coming out of the building, but when the waste comes out, it sits out there and, of course, makes odors. And so I do appreciate that you're taking steps, because that would be the other part. If you can't, well, even if they're picking up every day, if it's sitting there for 12 hours, there would need to be some system to keep it odor-free while it's out there. So, and I'm sure that's difficult to, plastic wrap it or whatever you would have to do, but I mean.
Well, that's part of the compactor and ozone, which would eliminate a great deal of that, even though it still will generate some odor. And then if you were able to get Burtec, or ideally somehow allow us to self-haul, then we could get rid of it much faster.
Yes.
So we'll continue to work with the city staff, and I think the city attorney has looked into it as well.
All right, yes, I'd be curious, because I was under the impression if you pay Burtec to come twice a day to pick up, they would come twice a day to pick up on a regular schedule. I don't know if it's because are you saying it's irregular, like some days you have and some days you don't, so you don't want to pay them for the days you don't? Because I could see if they're doing that, they might want to charge for the trip, whether they pick up any or not.
I mean, for us, it's more of we might schedule a Tuesday pickup. They might not show up till Wednesday. And so, for us, if we prepare, we hold waste inside the facility as long as possible. And so in the event that we have a scheduled pickup for Tuesday, the waste is then loaded and prepped for removal. And in some cases, they might not show up till Wednesday. They have their own internal scheduling. And then again, it's one of the bigger issues is that there is no scheduling feature other than a call-in. So for us, it's, we have, again, staff that, call on a Wednesday morning. We know they're going to be there Friday. We'll hold the waste typically inside the facility for about 2 days. It just creates operational challenges, and I think it's not sustainable long-term. I mean, we've figured out a way to do it, but, again, I think the compactor is a better option. And the self-hauling was kind of an easy solution that would allow us to, in essence, remove waste in smaller quantities on a daily basis. Again, I understand there's some limitations on how to go through the franchise agreement, so.
And have they spoken to you about that? Do they have to do some kind of special handling on their end when they receive your cannabis over, say, grass clippings or something?
They consider it a green waste. They do have certain standards on how it's to be bagged prior to use or prior to receiving. So it has to be double bagged. It has to be in a clear bag. But it's typically considered a green waste product.
All right, well, I know we would continue to urge you to work on that. It would seem like it would get to the right level at Burtec, that you could find some solution, so.
Yeah.
Good. Sorry to interrupt or emphasize what you were saying. Did you have additional, Councilmember?
That's it for me.
All
Thank
right,
you.
next up is Councilmember Ross.
Thank you so much. Hi. So I truly want to be optimistic, like so many of us do, like you do, like we all do, right? I mean, I think we're in the same boat going down the river. We want this to work. But I don't want to become overly optimistic while our snowbirds are gone. I know we do have one in the area. I don't think she's a snowbird, but she lives in the neighborhood. And So for me, I'm going to have to hold my concerns, my thoughts, my hopes, my I'm not going to say prayers, it's not going to go that far, but that when our birds come back, they're going to be the ones. They're going to be the ones that tell us if it's working or if it's not working. Fingers crossed, it's going to be working. But until then, I mean, I look, we used to get 100 people at every one of our meetings. Now, we don't because they're not here. It's not that they aren't able to share. They just physically aren't here. So fingers crossed, let's get through to the fall and let's make sure that it's just as vibrant as you say it is now. And I have fingers and toes crossed. Thank you so much.
Mayor Pro Tem Gutierrez.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, those are promising news and great information that you guys have provided. I'm really happy to hear that everything you're doing, implementing all the new technology, is working. Now, my question is, when you do the release of vapor, what percentage of cannabis is in that vapor?
So it's continual exhaust. So we have the exhaust systems running 24/7. The way that we monitor exhaust is through periodic VOC readings at the exhaust point. There was a period of time where we used a GC spectrometer, which is another gas analysis system. We would take air sampling at the exhaust point, and we would use it as a reference against, in essence, the efficiency of the carbon and the combination of the system. So in most cases, new carbon is about, the carbon that we use is about 99% effective. There is a saturation curve with carbon that through the odor mapping we've identified is specific to different areas within the building. So, the easiest way to correlate odor is from what we have determined is VOC. We do have the perimeter monitoring system, which is currently 2 sensors, one on the southeast property line and one on the northwest property line. And so that data is trended in real time. It takes a VOC sample every 5 seconds. It does correlate to a weather station that we have on site. And the VOC is measured. What we've done is run a correlation between the VOC readings at the property line and the amount of complaints or the absence of complaints. And so there's, from what we've seen, roughly a 40 ppb standard to correlate to cannabis odor. There was a concern from SCS engineers that VOC is not an effective way to monitor cannabis odor. There's a component that is not picked up through VOC readings, which is a thiol. And that item is a hard to track substance. It's very elusive when it comes to filtration. So we conducted the study in January, which was with 2 different consulting firms. We used RJ Lee. They have a specialized system to monitor thiol components, and mercaptan, which are, again, the skunky cannabis odor. We concurrently ran a VOC study with Blaine Hartman, and those systems were tracking in real time different sampling points within the building. We then took that data and ran a correlation study to see if VOC does correspond to thiol, which the data that we've reviewed, there's a very high correlation between the two. So what we're working on now is validating the VOC data point to encompass the thiol through a correlation, which is a very complex system to build, but in essence, being able to account for the sulfur aspect of cannabis odor through looking at VOC independently. And so by doing that, what we've, again, established is 1, very efficient specialized carbon, and then 2, a way that we can more efficiently and economically account for the thiol component, which previously was not done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, is there a certain time, according to everything you said, it sounded like a political answer. There was a lot in it that is a little too much for us, technical. Now, is there a particular time that this vapor is released throughout the day?
So there is some consistency in what we would consider a higher VOC reading and correlating to complaints. It's typically early morning and late afternoon. What we're starting to notice is that there's a change in building temperature, the thermal load of the building. So when the sun rises, the building is going to warm up, and when the sun sets, the building will cool, and typically the building warms and cools faster than the ambient space around it. So what's happening is the building is kind of breathing in a sense, and it does correspond somewhat to barometric pressure. The reason that we've incorporated the static pressure sensor system as part of our kind of Q2, Q3 improvement is that we'll be able to map pressure points within the building to understand if the building is actually releasing odor as kind of a heat exchange with the ambient air.
Okay. And now, since you are, most of the air or all the air is filtrated 3 or 4 times before it's actually released. Now, air balancing is very important, of course. I love the fact that very little odor is actually released now. Now, does that affect the employees inside the building? Because all the air is not being circulated, there's no or is there any fresh air being pumped into the building?
Yeah, we still have our Title 24 standards. So we have fresh makeup air that comes in. There is negative pressure. So we tend to add fresh air in areas that are not under a high odor load. And then we tend to exhaust at a higher rate in areas that have a higher odor load. So there's still air exchange in the building. And again, there's significant filtration. In most cases, the system that we have is reduced the PM 2.5 levels, the PM 10 levels. We had a AQMD inspection as recently as a month ago where the inspectors were commenting on how clean the air was in the building, how little dust they were noticing, and it all correlates to the filtration and the air exchanges that are going on.
Well, according to the information you provided, I think the information and the results are very promising, and I hope that we can actually get a presentation later on, probably in 5 or 6 months, or when all the snowbirds come back, like it was mentioned, and to give them an opportunity to actually hear the same presentation, hoping that the same results continue to improve as they have.
Absolutely.
Well, and thank you so much, and I'll be calling you to do a tour around the facility one more time.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Thank you.
If I may add one other thing, speaking of the community, in the beginning of March, we reached out to Orbs, to the general manager there, because we wanted to make this presentation to them in advance, and we got no response. So we will continue to reach out to them at the appropriate time, but we have been trying to do that.
Excellent. Well, hopefully they are either watching or they will watch this streamed later, so they will get to see their presentation there. So I just want to echo real quickly the sentiments of my colleagues. I do thank you for this presentation. You're doing quite a lot that I wasn't totally aware of. I had heard some of it, but it's good to be able to see. And when he was starting to mention employees, I was thinking when you were presenting that, well, of course, it's brilliant to scrub inside because then you have less chance of any leaking out, so as much as possible. And although your employees are likely somewhat tolerant to the cannabis odor, if it's greatly reduced inside, it would seem like the amount that's absorbed by their clothing or that they tolerate during the day. So you probably have some that would appreciate that inside too. And I have a little experience with negative pressure before, and I know negative pressure has been brought up many times in the past, and my experience mostly with detention facilities in one of my past lives was that you can have great negative pressure, but all it takes is somebody to leave the door open, and the system's not going to be able to handle that. So I appreciated your talking about sensors, and then it sounded like they're alarmed, and so that they tell you if for some reason there's so much air coming in that from some source that your negative pressure is starting to fail. That is totally important, and of course, I'm sure you probably have to remind employees and have some discipline about those types of things, because as people get used to working, they tend to open doors when they're not supposed to, or open too many at one time, those types of things. I assume if you have that type of a system, when you do need to open a bigger door, you either have some kind of interlock system, or you have a way that the system cranks up. So you're opening a big bay door, the system then is cranking up so that it's still maintaining a negative pressure. So, those types of things seem like the right way to be headed. I'm not a professional at this, but they all make sense. So, but as my colleague said, and as I know you would agree, that the test is really going to be, has it really, reduced or hopefully pretty much eliminated the odor, and so that remains to be seen. So, but I don't really have any other questions, but I do congratulate you. If you get the interior odor down low enough, maybe even I'll come visit. So, so we'll just lay that out like that. And next up is Councilmember Lamb.
Thank you so much for your presentation. My question had to do with the BURTEC and the waste removal, so it was answered adequately. Thank you so much. But my question is just curiosity. So after, let's say BURTEC comes and takes the waste, do they just take it up to Edom Hill?
Yeah, their transfer yard, the waste station they have up here on the hill.
Okay, and is it processed before that, or is that, we just take the odor up there?
I'm not sure how they handle
Okay.
the cannabis waste.
I was just
I know
wondering-
it's just considered typically like a green waste
Right,
product.
green waste,
But
okay.
it is, council member, if I may, it
Yeah.
is on the cannabis side, there is a considerable amount of tracking of what happens to the waste that goes into metric, and it's
I was gonna
weighed
say,
and it's
there-
reported. So
yeah.
that's what's reported, and that's what BURTEC picks up.
Okay, thank you. That was just curiosity.
All right, anything else from council?
If I may just offer one closing positive comment, and C4 may not know this yet either, but they have received the city's first approval of an odor control plan, and
Oh, that's great. Yay.
you've heard in the presentation this afternoon, this is captured in their odor control plan. And additionally, what they've laid out as future improvements, as those get implemented, those will be amendments to that odor control plan. So the odor control plan, that's the foundation for all discussions we as a staff have with a cannabis operator. So if we do get odor complaints in the future, we'll be using that odor control plan as the basis for that discussion. So there's our first odor control plan.
Fantastic, thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
That's great news.
All right, do we have any speaker cards on this item?
Mayor, we did receive one. Alicia Mihan.
Welcome.
Thank you. Some of the people, I'm speaking for the public, so I'm going to give a little reality check here. So I know everyone was congratulating all these, various people, code enforcement and so forth. But I want to just start with, from the perspective of the public. And this was shared with me from one of the most senior people at CARB yesterday. All people deserve to breathe clean air. It's very simple. That's how we feel. And I happen, after listening to code enforcement gentlemen, I went today, and I've been going, we have a whole bunch of different people from the public to the various cannabis facilities on a daily basis, and we stand outside of the property line, which is your ordinance, that there should be no order beyond the property line. And today, there it was, 68718 Perez Road. We were right outside the property line, and it was so horrible, and this strong scent that it burned our eyes. Same with 68796 Perez Road. Went there, super strong, as well as on Summit Drive. There were a number of facilities there. One of the worst was 6772 East Palm Canyon. I have no idea how this group would have approved the zoning to put that monstrosity right next to Target, where you see all these little families going in and out, the UPS store, Eisenhower Urgent Care, Trader Joe's. I went to all of them. And I've been giving them the AQMD information because given all the complaints going to the city, we do view it as just going to deaf ears. So we are getting the AQMD involved. And they've been going and confirming that there is odor at the property line. And we're hoping that they will partner with you. Because what I heard at the odor virtual town hall was that the code enforcement has given no fines whatsoever at this point. So as a former prosecutor, we know that you have to there has to be accountability if you are going to get action and get, what good is having the law if there's no enforcement?
Thank you so much for your comments.
And we also don't have the link. We want to get the virtual.
Thank you. If you would talk to staff afterward, they could help you with any computer
You can't
link.
find that link to the virtual town hall on your website. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Mayor, that is all I have.
All right, is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to make a public comment? Seeing none, I will, this is just a update and report, so we will move on with our agenda. I know we have some time constraints here, and I know we have a member, at least one member from the Desert Valley Business Association. The DBA. Does anyone, which item are you here to speak on, or on both?
It's just on CPI, the fee increase.
On 2B, on the development impact fee? All right, we're going to go ahead and hear that item then. Next is item 2B, the AB 1600 Development Impact Fee Annual Consumer Price Index CPI update. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor, and I think you've covered most of the introduction. Kevin Biersack will be leading this presentation.
All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay, so we're doing this one.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council, City staff. Thank you for the introduction, Andy. What you have before you this afternoon, this first one is the AB 1600 Development Impact Fee Annual Update. Ask questions as we go along or save them to the end, please. A little bit of background. Development impact fees are also called DIFs. There are one-time fees charged to new development. For example, when a permit comes in the door, and depending upon the type of permit, it may have a DIF or DIFs applied to it. They're intended to pay for backbone infrastructure and capital facilities to serve new developments and the growing population of our new residents and existing residents. We are prohibited from using those DIFs to fund ongoing operations, maintenance, or to make up for any type of deficiency that might exist. These are accounted for separately. We have separate funds for all of our DIFs. For our impact fees, they are set aside and they are saved for once we have the required funding for any projects that we have identified and you all have seen when we come forth before you with the different types of projects that are DIF or AB 1600 type projects that we've designated. Most recently, we're in our current round of up to 8 years is when you can do, or should do, must do, an impact fee update. So our most recent impact fee update was completed in the fall of 2023, presented to our city council, was approved and implemented January 1st of 2024. We had our first CPI update, an inflationary adjustment done, and we did it 18 months thereafter and aligned it to the fiscal year. So this is the kind of thing that can happen on the impact fees that are in between the comprehensive study. So whether we do a comprehensive study anywhere from 5 to 8 years, but a maximum of 8 years apart, in between we do inflationary adjustments. So July 1st of 2025 was our first inflationary adjustment, and we brought it to you last April. in a study session and then in an evening session, and you all approved that impact fee inflationary adjustment. So what you have before you this afternoon is the discussion and the review of the inflationary adjustment for the AB 1600 for this year, which would be our second inflationary adjustment. And if you all approve that this month through these two meetings, this week and today and in 2 weeks, it would become effective July 1st, the new fiscal year. The 5 development impact fees that we have currently under this inflationary adjustment are for parks, transportation, general government facilities, fire facilities, and police facilities. The inflationary adjustment that was determined in the original comprehensive study that was approved in 2023 is based on the CCI, the Construction Cost Index, for the 20 city average, as reported by the ENR, the Engineering News Record. And that's for a 12-month period, year over year, December over December. So for this example, December of 25 to December of 24, and in that publication, the 12-month inflationary adjustment year over year is 3.6%. So what you have in the staff report is this slide, and in the next slide, I have just the current impact for this year. This is a year over year of the 1.6 from 25 over 24 versus the year over year of 26 over 25. And you can see it went up from a 1.6% to a 3.6% for the 5 impact fees. So here it is in a little bit bigger print. You can just see what it looks like for this year and what those rates will be. And you'll notice there's a rate for residential and non-residential. Residential is based on per square foot, and non-residential is based on per 1,000 square foot. So some key dates. Let's talk about that. With respect to the city clerk last week sent notices to 6 organizations, the Agua Caliente, the BIA of SoCal, the Desert Valley Business Association, and James Brownyard is here tonight to represent them, or this afternoon, I should say, the Riverside County BIA, SoCal Gas, and SoCal Edison. It was published also last week in the newspaper and published again, ironically, today in the newspaper. So tied today, it's for your review and any feedback that you may have. And then with your concurrence, we plan to come back in 2 weeks for City Council public hearing and approval and subsequent ratification, which would be 2 months later, the 60-day notice. And given the fact that that is the latter part of June, that would then allow us to implement according to this schedule on July 1st. So the fiscal impact, if you look at year over year and compare not the year that we're in right now, because it's not a completed fiscal year, but if you look at the development folks, the development activity that we had coming in fiscal year 24-25, and you compare that, then this could provide an opportunity of up to $75,000 for fiscal year 26-27 activity if it is equivalent to 24-25. This is in line with our strategic plan goal, and in this example, we meet 2 goals, both from a community investment because the impact fees help us with that community investment, for example, new roads, not maintaining, but new roads. And then goal C, fiscal stability and sustainability, which is normally one of the primary goals when you hear from us in financial services. So the recommendation is to review the annual inflationary update for this AB 1600, these, I should say, AB 1600 development impact fees, and then hold a subsequent public hearing in 2 weeks. So on that note, that's the end of my presentation.
All right, let me ask you. So you have a chart in the staff report, and it shows the 5 different types of fees, and it shows the past year and the proposed. But it doesn't have a total on each. So like for residential, a total over the 2 years. So I would have to do math to add these up. I think we had this last year.
We had this discussion last year.
We asked you to put a column with the totals, but it, again, is not in this one.
And so that ties back to a discussion of what does a total mean? Because not every impact fee, every permit that comes in that has an impact fee would have all 5 of these. So the germane to the discussion, the total column doesn't really tie back to, it's not like it's a total that for this permit, for all permits, you're going to have all 5 of those
No,
fees.
per square foot or per 1,000 square feet, just like you have it in the chart. You have the past year per square foot, say for parks, and then it's 6 cents more proposed per square foot, single-family residential for the upcoming year proposed, and you have that for each of the items per square foot, but you didn't total those columns.
We did not. And we had an internal discussion with respect to that total did not carry through because we were tying back to last year what happened. We did that based on that request. But the total column it's not like it's a total column that's relevant for a permit, and that's why we opted not to include that column.
It's not relevant. When somebody comes in for a residential single family, they can say, well, I want to pay all of the diff, but I don't want to pay parks.
But depending
You say,
on
okay, we charge you for each one, and you don't have to pay all of them. Don't they have to pay all of them? So why, you total it when somebody
depending
comes
upon the type of permit, they may have to pay all of them, but other types of permits, they may not have to pay them.
So there are some single-family residential that pay a different amount for a diff per square foot?
Depending upon the type of permit that you pull, and what it is, you may have a diff that's applicable. All 5 may be applicable, but not all 5 may be applicable.
For single-family residential, it differs? There are different types?
I'm not.
That's what you just said. There are some that it would apply to and some that it wouldn't. You have on the side residential, single-family, multifamily. You have non-residential per 1,000 square foot, commercial, office, industrial. You have numbers in there. Now you're saying that it wouldn't apply to all of the same type? So
No,
all
I'm not.
single-family residentials don't pay the same diff fee per square foot?
No, I'm saying based on the type of permit that you would pull.
I got you. So you would add a column and you would add them all per type. So we could see the total. And it went up from this much to this much total. It would seem like a simple.
Sir, I understand your point. We opted not to do it. We can add it for the final in
If you
2
would,
weeks.
I believe we asked for that last year whenever this
You
came
did
back.
ask for it last year, and we had an
did have the
internal
total.
discussion and did not include it.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
I do have a simple
Oh,
question.
sorry.
You go for it.
And you did first.
Okay. My question is, what is the current balance in our DIF or DIF fund?
It depends on the fund and based on the permits that come in. I have a slide that we did 3 months ago, and we do it based on the end of the fiscal year. So I can give that to you, but we have anywhere from $300,000 to $400,000 in one of the funds to upwards to $1.5 million, almost $2 million in another fund. But each of these 5 have their own fund balance. We only calculate fund balance when we roll at the end of the fiscal year. But I can include that. I can email that to you, or I can include that at the public hearing presentation.
Yeah, either or, it's fine. Thank you. That's all I needed to know.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Will
A lot
do.
of the other questions, you answered them, and they were asked as well, so perfect. Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, sir.
Okay,
Thank you so much for the presentation.
thank you.
So let me say this correctly because I messed it up and I think, Kevin, you might have slightly messed it up because you probably listened to me. So we do have someone in the audience from the Desert Valleys Builders Association. I keep saying business.
I know, and I said business, and
I know
as soon as they said it,
You probably copied me. So would he like to make any comments?
Good afternoon, James Brownyard, Desert Valleys Builders Association. It's a common mistake, business, building, it is a business. We really appreciate working with Kevin and the staff. There's only one thing that we would like to have included in this, and that is there is a section that states basically you have to show that the new fees, the increase in fees do not exceed the cost of providing the infrastructure. And the same way with the next fees category, which is user and regulatories, that you're not collecting more than those services. And we've already talked about that, and he said that will be added before the public hearing. So that's it. I'm pretty much.
So you're just requesting that the language be included in there?
Well, that language that is, shows, or those numbers that show that by department, we're not gaming the system. So we're not collecting
Well,
more
it sounds
than its
like
cost.
you're asking that we would have to do a full study each
No.
year. Okay, so you're not asking for that. You're just asking.
It's a math thing.
Okay.
And it's a government code citation. So James, when we've had both dialogue and I received an email with feedback. And so we've gone back and forth since they were noticed last week. So there's a government code citation. Ironically, James, I included that in the next presentation as part of an ad because of the focus of the master user and regulatory fees. So we have that in there, and it also ties back to making sure that when we increase our fees based on that CPI increase, that we can also account for that our expenditures are not less than that increase in fees. Basically, we're not overcharging the public.
Thank you. All right. Thank
So
you.
will
And thank you.
see-
And thank you for
you'll
the
see a
DVA.
You'll see a blurb in the next
All right.
presentation.
Excellent. Thank you for the work the DVBA does to help out with this in particular, these types of increases, so that we know that there's a educated set of eyes that are on it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. Anything else? Is there any member of the public wishes to comment on this item? All right. So this is, again, just a review. This item will be coming back again for a formal adoption at a future meeting.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. All right, with that, we are going to go slightly out of order, and we're going to take our closed session item at this time, and I'll ask the city attorney to read us into closed session.
Thank you, Mayor. We do have one item of closed session today. It's a conference with legal counsel with regard to one item of anticipated litigation. It's a potential claim and filed lawsuit by Z Energy with regard to the old landfill.
All right, thank you. We're going to go ahead and recess into closed session. If we have time before our next meeting starts, we may try to take up the next item, but it may be moved to the end of our next agenda. Thank you. I'm going to call the study session back in order. I see that all 5 of us are in the room now. And we want to just go ahead and read out from closed session on the item that was heard.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, we had that one item of anticipated litigation. You had a briefing from the city attorney's office. You gave direction to the city manager. There was no other reportable action on that item. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. And we are going to go ahead and adjourn this meeting. Item 2C in the study session, city user and regulatory fees update, will be moved to our regular meeting, and we will hear it as item 5E. And with that, we are adjourned.